I want to start today's video with a bit of a content warning for my viewers, just to let you know if you hadn't already been caught up on the Activision Blizzard debacle from this last week. Just know that there's a warning of sexual misconduct and suicide. We won't be talking deeply about them because the video was about something else, but the article we're going to cover is mentioning those. So just wanted to give you a heads up. And let's get right into this big news right away. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the LZ, and I have got some, excellent news, I consider it to be. To give you a long and the short breakdown, of course, the article is going to cover that stuff too, but Activision has been in quite a bit of hot water in the last couple of weeks, and this isn't the first time they've been in hot water for sure. But news broke last week that Activision is being sued by the state of California for various misconduct problems, ranging anywhere from gender inequality, sexual harassment, etc., really boiling down to Activision Blizzard being sort of a bro culture that is just completely not with the times, which is weird. You would think that companies would sort of look at recent events as, within the last 5 to 6 years about how workplaces and society really needs to shift and be more diligent in these things. So with all of that in mind, Bloomberg just broke the news via Jason Schreier that Blizzard employees call for strike after a discrimination lawsuit. I'll just read straight from the article here. Link in the description below. Employees at Activision Blizzard Incorporated are calling for a walkout on Wednesday to protest the company's responses to a recent sexual discrimination lawsuit and demanding more equitable treatment for underrepresented staff. Last week, California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing sued the publisher behind the games of Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, detailing disturbing incidents of sexual harassment and assault and a culture in which women faced unequal pay and retaliation. Activision called the allegations false and distorted in a statement last week, and Fran Townsend, Executive Vice President for Corporate Affairs, sent a letter to staff echoing that claim. Infuriated Activision employees have spoken out on social media, and more than 2,000 staff signed an open letter calling the company's responses abhorrent and insulting. Now they're planning a strike. The walkout is being organized by a group of employees at the subsidiary Blizzard Entertainment, where the majority of the lawsuit's allegations were focused. In a statement to Bloomberg, the workers said their goal was to improve conditions for employees at the company, especially women, and in particular women of color and transgender women, non-binary, and other marginalized groups. The strike will take place outside of Blizzard's campus in Irvine, California on Wednesday, and the employees are demanding the following: that Activision ditch mandatory arbitration clauses in all employee contracts, current and future, new practices for recruiting, interviewing, hiring, and promotion that facilitate better representation agreed upon by employees in a company-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion organization, the publication of data on relative compensation, promotion rates, and salary ranges for employees of all genders and ethnicities at the company, that a diversity task force be allowed to hire a third party to audit the company's leadership, hierarchy, and HR development. It is imperative to identify how current systems have failed to prevent employee harassment and to propose new solutions to address these issues. This is the second major organizing effort from Blizzard in the past 12 years. Last year, employees shared their salaries on a public spreadsheet and sent a letter of demands to management to ask for more equitable compensation. That action led to a very little response, employees said. Collective action is rare in the video game industry, which has no unions in North America. A representative for the Blizzard employees organizing this walkout said, "We are currently not discussing unionizing." So let's break that down. Knowing what's already happened and kind of what the subject is, we don't need to rehash that. Other bigger, better channels have. But really, one of the more simple solutions, at least addressing, a lot of the inequities, would simply be to unionize. I mean, I think we have had this conversation for way too long, and this industry desperately needs unionization, not only to tackle things like inequity and unfair salaries, but it would address so much more, right? It would address probably the happiness and the comfort of developers, fairer pay towards overtime, And of course, better representation in the workplace when it comes to sort of holding management accountable. In my real life job, I actually work in a unionized environment, and this is a very tough process, and the accountability is sort of always there. It's really kind of fascinating to see that in action. So how it is that this hasn't been a push for in the video games industry yet is kind of a long time coming. And it's not even Activision that's been in hot water lately for this exact activity. Ubisoft as well has been in dire hot water since, I would think, if I remember correctly, earlier on in the year for pretty much the same thing. The sort of abusive bro culture mentality and just horrible mistreatment of employees, particularly female and, and transgender folks. Not only did that happen, the CEO also protected the horrific offenders of this, and many of them still have their jobs. So there have been recent reports that not much has changed in the corporate structure and the environment over at Ubisoft. Granted, that's a Canadian company. But first, I gotta say, solidarity with the folks walking out and striking at Activision. I'm really pleased to hear that big action is going to take place. And honestly, for those of you who are watching this going, but what about my video games? Listen, this has a whole lot to do with your video games. Because not only is this a subject of having to deal with terrible work culture for making your game, making a developer's experience better, this could hopefully lead to improving the state of games in general as well, particularly if unionization happens. You really have to ask yourself just how much video games would improve, at least on a quality and happiness standard, if developers just simply didn't hate their jobs. Perhaps it does run the risk of setting back your favorite video games, like whatever it is that Activision is going to poop out at the end of the year regarding Call of Duty. Currently running work on Blizzard's World of Warcraft is currently at a halt as of reported yesterday. I think the effect that this is going to have on your favorite games is kind of a moot point. This is a conversation that's got to happen first, and if it stops development or forward progress on any of the major projects that Activision has on the burner right now, actually, that's a good thing. I tend to shrug when people are saying things like vote with your wallet, etc., because that's never really a viable way to protest a terrible company like Activision, right? They still sell more copies of their games than Jesus. And, a half a dozen people vowing that they're not going to buy a game on a message board like Reset Era isn't going to hit them in the purse the way you imagine or hope that it would. This, however, their products burning to a crisp in the oven before they even reach the market is exactly where you want to hit them. Nobody learns their lessons until you hit them directly in the pocketbook, right? And not only that, okay, let's, as sick as it makes me, let's just buy for the second that the CEOs and VPs and their message is correct. These stories have been wildly spun or are completely inaccurate. The way in which they're addressing such a sensitive topic is just disgusting. The least you could do is sort of shine it up a little bit, come out and be like, we believe in blah, blah, diversity, blah, blah. And here's the thing. That kind of response gives nothing but condemnation and condescension towards what actually happened. And honestly, that's not really surprising to me. Another good piece of information that was reported earlier in the week, or actually late last week, was that smaller outlets were going to stop covering Activision games. And that's great. I think we need bigger outlets to buy in on that as well. Because at this point, we really, as an industry, just need to stand up to this and need to say something about that and take big action. Because if we don't, the poison that is video game publishers like Activision and Ubisoft are going to continue to massively poison this well for everybody involved, and nobody is going to be better off for it. So really, the best action is to just act now, or just let the well be poisoned, because at this point, it's already there, and the only way that this is going to be fixed is big action, hitting them in the pocketbook, unionization, and people like Yves Guillemot and Bobby Kotick need to step down. they need to get out. The captain needs to jump off the ship at this point. So this is really good news. Let me know in the description or the comment section below kind of what you think on this big Activision strike that's upcoming. Do you think it's going to be a big deal? Do you think it's going to fall flat? What are your thoughts on it? Is it beneficial? But otherwise, thanks again for stopping by the LZ.